Quantum Marketing Radio, the marketing podcast for insurance agents and financial professionals.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Quantum Marketing Radio. Today we have a very special guest who is the founder of the Breakaway League, which is a kind of a combination of things, I think, but I'll describe it as a coaching program for financial advisors and agents to get their business to another level, but it's also training advisors on how to help consumers with using life insurance and the tax code and unique and different ways that I think is outside the box, maybe a bit different than the conventional wisdom that they might be getting from a securities trained advisor out there. So welcome, Tom. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Did I describe that right?
You did.
Good.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just kind of dive into some of the questions here because, you know, we have a limited amount of time that we're going to be doing this for. I know you're going to be presenting on our upcoming Cracking the Prospecting Code, which should be really exciting for agents that haven't seen your work before, that aren't familiar with you. But maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and your work, just so that anybody that doesn't know of the Breakaway League or your work, how you got in the business, and how did you end up coaching top of the table type advisors?
Well, I'll try and make we have 30 minutes, so I'll make this pretty quick. When I started in this business in '78, I was told by every gray-haired agent in our office, and I was fortunate to always be in a large office with a lot of big producers, that if I could survive long enough, that by the time I was at the peak of my career, I would be witnessing the largest transfer of wealth this country's ever seen. My job or task at hand would be to come up with an idea, a process, or a strategy that once I reached the pinnacle of my career, I would have something to say. So what we teach at the Breakaway League is something that I've been preparing for the last 43 years, and that is watching the largest demographic go through the retirement process without anyone really analyzing the impact of that largest demographic becoming a spender of savings and no longer a contributor. And the drain on the stock market is obvious. I mean, look what happens. And I don't know in financial planning, anywhere it says your prospects, your clients must lose 30 to 50% of their account value every 7 to 10 years, just because that's the way it is. I got tired of that. So the conversations that we have is really how truth about how wealth works, not chasing rates of returns. It isn't about math. It's just how wealth works. If you understood what happens at the end with whatever you're trying to build, and you find out that the impacts that you were never exposed to will in fact ruin every plan you had to retire, when would you want to know that that's going to be a potential problem? Today, or wait until it's too late? So what we do is we make 3 promises when we meet with a prospect. It's not about me, it's education only, and quite frankly, I don't care if you take action or not. My goal is to teach every United States American how income taxes work and how wealth works. And then you decide if you want to take action or not. So this has been an evolution for me. I started off the Breakaway League 12 years ago by working with people who came to me and said, I got a guy. Never wanting to learn the strategy, never wanting to understand the process. They looked at me as a big case writer, and hopefully I'd get their tax lien paid off because of the size of the cases we would write. And I quickly realized I don't want to do that. I would rather work with a group of people who want to be educated, want to learn, and want to become better prepared to have a conversation with people about the problems that are associated with the financial choices we've already made. And we've gone through a lot here in the last 12, 13 years, and it's now more fun than ever in my career than it has been. It's easier, and it's a lot more enjoyable. And I get a real kick out of helping people understand how to talk to the American people rather than sell to them. Because I believe if we truly educated the average American how life insurance works, they would stand in line to buy it from you all day long if we explained it the right way. We don't. We're trained by people for the wrong reasons on what we're supposed to be saying.
Well, and isn't that true? I mean, life insurance is this amazing tool, this Swiss Army knife, and almost nobody understands what it is and what it can do from a consumer level. But honestly, I think it's probably almost as bad amongst the licensed agents out there.
Oh, it is. I think it's worse. And the reason why I think it's worse is because I'm training those people who have been pigeonholed to talk about stuff for features and benefits and get away from that language and start talking to people on how to communicate the problems that people don't realize they have. For example, if you have a qualified retirement plan, if you live in a state with a state income tax, you're paid fifth on the day that you retire. And you don't even know that. And the reason why I gave up my registration, I was a Series 6, 63, 65, and 7 up to June of last year, is because I was being limited on how I could communicate how wealth works. I had to follow their rules to talk about the things they wanted me to talk about and exclude the truth about what's happening. So I said, you can have it. You can take your license, and I would rather spend the rest of my life just educating the average American.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? The regulatory bodies that control sort of the mainstream solutions want you to exclude certain language about what we can do with life insurance, which is pretty spectacular stuff, right?
I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, that's a nice burden to be free of, I'm sure.
It is.
So obviously 2020 has been a crazy year in terms of everything in the world, right? We've got a crashing stock market, a collapsing economy as a result of government mandates to shut things down, pandemic. What's the biggest surprise you've had, other than the obvious, that relates to prospecting right now in this environment that's different from maybe before?
Yeah, I'm only going to talk briefly about the pandemic. I can't change anything that's been decided, but I have chosen to take 2020 as a year to regroup. So I look back at 2013, and my income was not as good as 2012, but my income has quadrupled since 2013. One of the questions you wanted to go over are what sort of people have had an impact on your life, and there have been 3 events that happened in 2013 that changed my life. And it is now created an environment conducive for people to want to write big checks to buy life insurance. And it's not because the product got better. It's not because the industry got better or the regulatory agencies got more lax. It's because I got better. I took 2013 as a year to get better for myself, and I'm taking 2020 as a year to really build this organization with a couple of goals in mind. And one is to build an organization that can survive without me. And I've got 7 mentors. I'm one of them. So 6 other mentors that are equally versed in the same thing, but I'm trying to build an organization where the camaraderie, the fun, the knowledge, the accountability that we're building is a group of people that all believe the same thing, want the same thing for our clients. So I don't have to put on a purple jacket to talk to that group and a green jacket to talk to that group and a blue jacket to talk to that group. I can be who I want to be, and I can attract those people who believe as I do. The thing I have found in our industry, though, is that very few people have a belief as to why they're in this business. And this is probably the most frustrating thing for me, is that this is one of the things I learned in 2013 was everything you do starts with why. And my goal in life is to meet Simon Sinek. I want to personally thank him. I want to shake his hand because I have copied basically every word he has said in his TED talk, start with why. And I believe everything we do has a why. And when you can articulate your why so that it benefits somebody else, you're entitled to making more money than you ever thought possible. And I'll give you a quick example. If my why in business is I want to make a big sale so I can own a Rolls Royce, well, I'm happy for you, but I believe that's more of a goal than it is why you're in this business. I think you can make more money in a Taco Bell than you can in this business if that's your only motivation for being in this business. I want to teach every U.S. citizen how the tax code works so they could take advantage of everything that I know and retire and pay less income taxes. That's my why. And think of an hourglass. Everything we learn are little nuggets of sand on the top of this hourglass. And they have to go through that narrow part, that vortice of that hourglass. And that vortice is actually my core belief, my why. So that when I hear these wonderful conversations from everyone in your audience that's going to hear people like me talk about stuff, it has to go through their core belief. Why do they believe what they believe? So that they can take those grains of sand and go out and have articulate conversations that have an impact. And you can't emulate, you can't mimic, you can't copy my passion. You sure as heck, though, could build a why and create passion yourself. And the beauty of why I built the explanation of services, how to answer the question, what do you do for a living, is because everything we do starts with words like I believe, I think, this is who I am, this is what I believe, why I believe it, to whom I believe it with, and why I share it with people I want to share it with. And then it gives you an opportunity in 15 seconds to say, you're either full of crap, I want nothing to do with you, or I want to hitch my wagon to you, let's go. Either way, I win, because in 20 seconds, I find someone who either believes as I do or doesn't. I am no longer going to be a chameleon. I'm no longer going to prove anything to anybody. There's 13,000 books at Amazon written about this stuff. 13,000. Go read a handful and call me back in 6 months. I'm going to give you one opportunity to do business with me because I'm the buyer in this relationship. I'm not selling anything. I'm trying to find people who believe as I do. This is what I believe. And we don't have people in their industry that have a belief. Why are we in this business? Life insurance is good, all these features and benefits. No, that's why life insurance sales are at the all-time low. I believe we're taught by lawyers on how to talk language that makes them happy, and they keep us from being unique. I can't go out and tell you what I think. Well, I changed that when I got rid of my registration. Now I'm going to tell you what I believe, why I believe it, and to whom I wish to share it. And if you do not believe as I do, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it seems like from a prospecting standpoint, that's a powerful way to approach your interaction with the market, because the people that don't connect with your message and your passion are pushed away, and the ones that do are sucked in like a magnet.
And you know, one of the questions you asked is, what are you prospecting? I'll share with you my belief. I think the biggest reason why the life insurance industry fails miserably is because we don't have enough people to talk to. That's what they say. I'll argue this. I believe we don't have enough good things to say when we find the people we can talk to. And I use this as an analogy. I'll ask a group of people, shout out how many people you saw last week. And they think the question really was, how many appointments did you have? And they'll throw out a number, for example, 10. And I go, interesting. That's not my question. My question was, how many people did you see? You inferred that to mean, how many appointments did you have? See, I would argue you saw 200 people last week, but had nothing to say to 190 of them. And you settled for the 10 that you made the appointment with. If I could teach you how to engage in conversation to start it, so that you can find people who believe as you do, I would argue that the 10 you do end up with that way will be worth much more to you than the 10 you found. But we don't have any idea how to engage in conversation. That's how I developed, after 2013, the answer to the question, what do you do for a living? I wrote a book on it, the EOS, Explanation of Services. I want to be the buyer in the relationship. I want to be able to engage in a conversation anywhere to anyone at any time when I choose to. See, I'm the buyer. So if I could just start teasing you with some bombs, like, do you realize that, you're paid fifth when you go to retire? Or my definition of diversification is going to cost you $272,000 of Social Security earnings that you would have been entitled to had your financial advisor understood how wealth works. But because they don't, that's how much you're going to lose in social. See, these are types of conversations. When I meet someone for the first time, I have one objective. I want them to be able to ask me, what do you do for a living? And the minute they ask me that question, I own the rest of the talk. I get to choose if I like you, but I will go in and tease the crud out of you just to kind of throw bombs at you and see if it bothers you. And if it doesn't, I'm okay with that. I sat next to a billionaire on a plane talking about my why. And she looked at me and said, what if we don't mind paying taxes? And I said, we're not a good fit. Now, 5 years ago, I would have gotten her address or phone number. I would have sent her a box of chocolates, a leather-bound binder of every product and service, hoping to get an appointment. I looked at her and smiled and said, we're not a good fit.
So at the core of your philosophy is inherently differentiating based on your own passion too. So for every advisor that you're coaching, they find their why, that becomes part of their differentiation.
Absolutely. I've spent a career trying to differentiate myself from everybody in the worst and most commoditized industry out there.
You're right. It's
Yep.
so unfortunate because people, they have a hard time figuring out how to become a differentiated person in this sea of products that are all the same that everybody can offer. And unfortunately, that's what most people talk about. That's often how they sell. They show up with an illustration to show somebody from the beginning.
I get sick over that thought. Yes, we don't use illustrations. We have to have them sign them, but we don't, because it's not about the math.
It's not about the math or a horrible list of spreadsheet numbers that they don't understand when they look at a ledger of a life insurance illustration. Can you imagine if you're a consumer that doesn't know how cash value life works, looking at a whole life or a IUL or any kind of cash value ledger? I mean, it's just gobbledygook. You're not sending somebody down the right path for sure by doing that. So,
Go ahead.
So let's talk a little bit about what's the hardest part for most agents in learning your approach to attracting prospects to them?
Well, in our program, when a new person joins, I have them do only two things.
Okay.
Two things. That is to find your why, build your explanation of services, and introduce me as someone who will enhance the relationship rather than take away. The rest you're going to learn. But if you think you're going to read a book and know everything that there is that the Breakaway League does, you're mistaken. So if you will eat an elephant one bite at a time and just do the two things I'm asking, find your why and answer the question, what do you do for a living? So it doesn't repel people, it attracts. And how to introduce someone where 2 and 2 is 5. That's all I'm asking a new member to do. And that's how we build success in this business. You'll learn everything that I can teach you. I'm an open book. I will tell you everything that I've done well, and I'll also keep you from doing everything I've done poorly. Or you can put your hand on that red hot burner and see if it's hot. I can't stop you, but I can tell you the son of a bitch is hot. And if you want to put your hand on it and burn yourself, I'm okay with that too. So if someone is intent to learn, we've got a program to teach them. And it's about communication, how to make this product a want rather than a need. And that's the fun I have. We've got the beauty of having a group like I have. We've got 60, 65 members now. I've got 4 CPAs, an attorney, and we've got one CPA who wrote a book, The Capital Equivalent Value of Life Insurance, how much you would have to earn in an IRA, for example, to equal what the distribution is going to be through insurance. And it's 27%. How much you'd have to earn in an IRA if you're in the top tax bracket for 10 years, every single year. You can't have 21 and you can't have a negative 30 like we had in March. Can't do that. It has to be positive 27 every year. And that's another reason why I gave up my registration. I never met anyone in 42 years that became very successful buying a mutual fund. And I never met anybody becoming successful buying an annuity, whether it was indexed, fixed, or variable. So again, we're taught wrong and we chase the wrong thing. And if we could learn the benefit of how this works and just go out and share, look, I just want to tell you how it is, you can decide whether you want to do it or not. I only want to work with people that want to be worked with. I'm no longer convincing, chasing, or proving. I got out of that about 5 years ago.
So that actually does kind of answer the question. It's a lot easier when you have that person that's already internally motivated. You're not having to convince anybody. If they want to transform their business and their interaction with consumers and really differentiate their practice, they've got to want to do it. They have to know their why, like you said. They have to do the homework. Otherwise, there's no point, and you're not, obviously it's no fun to work with people like that anyways.
My favorite quote in the group is, you're about to get a pay raise.
You're about to get a pay raise.
It becomes effective the day you are.
Yeah, right. So for everybody listening to the podcast today, obviously, the key to success with probably anything in the industry is learning the path that a proven expert in the industry has already paved, right? So Tom has already figured the path out and has coached others to do the same. I would love to hear a little bit about maybe one of the guys in your group that you can talk a little bit about a transformation they've had in their business, that their pay raise took effect once they got effective.
I'm going to share with you a funny story, and I'm going to be the brunt of the joke, but I'm okay with that because, as you can imagine, I've been called everything but alive, and I'm okay with that. I had a father and a son team come to listen to me speak when I was in Fort Lauderdale doing a presentation. They live in Naples, and they sat in the back of the room, and I gave them my presentation. On the way home, they said, "That's the most arrogant SOB I've ever met in my life." And then over the next year, they were analyzing the best year they've had in their career. And they came to the conclusion that they implemented everything they learned from that biggest bloviating SOB they've ever met in their life. So they came back the following year, they sat in the front of the room this time, and they said, "We want to join your group." And on the way from Lauderdale to Naples on Alligator Alley, it's 2 hours, they had identified 104 people they were going to put through the strategy. And I said, "Guys, if I could give you any advice, it's to work with no more than 20 at a time. These are large cases. I mean, our average premium is close to $80,000 a year. And it is a completely different way of looking at things. And when you get clients that have been doing things a certain way for 60 years, and all of a sudden you tell them their baby is ugly, and then they go, "Well, wait a minute, I think I hear what you're saying, but this is different." Yes, it is. It is completely different. The wealthiest people in the country have been doing this for 107 years. You've never heard about it, but yeah, it is different. So there's this evolution. I call it fermentation. We kind of hit it between the eyeballs, and then we have to let it sink in. And how you handle the conversation once it is starting to sink in and they begin to realize this is their journey, not mine. They have a lot of great questions. You can't assume that just because somebody says, "I've got a big check and I can afford to do this," that they're going to do it. So the biggest thing I can tell anybody is that if you do something like this, you have to go slow. And the son made top of the table his first year, and has made top of the table every year since. He is now one of our mentors in our group. So he now works with other agents and sharing his story with them on how to go from good producer to great producer. And I want to, looking at the questions you kind of put forth, I want to share with the group, you know, when I go to speak to a new audience, I will ask, how many people, raise your hand, how many people drove to get here? And of course, everybody drove unless they stayed at the hotel last night. But I said, how many drove on an expressway? And they all raise their hand again. And then I ask, how many times did you put on the blinker? How many times did you change lanes? If I could give any of your listeners advice, it'd be to get in a lane and own it. Own it. There's so many different things that the insurance industry does. Find something you're passionate about and own that space. I never met anybody at top of the table that was a general practitioner. Never. These guys are laser focused on one thing. And I don't know what that thing is. It could be estate planning, legacy planning, charitable giving, whatever the heck it is, they own that space. So rather than try to be trained to be a general practitioner, being everything to everybody, I could give you advice. Stop it. Stop it. Find something you're passionate about. Learn everything there is to know about it. Interview those people that are good at it and repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat over and over and over again. Do it over and over again. That would be my biggest advice to anybody listening for the first time.
Having been in the business for 20 plus years or so, I would say just looking across the spectrum, I've seen, you know, very successful top of the table guys and guys struggling to find their next commission. And almost always, I would say your advice holds true in that the people that are really struggling to make a good living in this industry are the ones that are, you know, trying to sell everything in the kitchen sink, and they don't really have any unique positioning in the market. And so your advice, I think, is fantastic advice for anybody listening today. You know, quit doing all the everything in the kitchen sink thing and get some laser focus. Pick that lane.
Simon Sinek said when people ask, "What do you do for a living?" and you answer with "what," it's a commodity trap. People don't care what you do. They want to know why you do it, because what you do proves what you believe. Yet in our society, we're not asked, why do you do what you do? But I will tell you this, one of the guys in our group, when he was asked, what do you do for a living? Listen to his response. He says, while I'm prepared to answer that for you, I'm better prepared to tell you why I do it. Now, I don't care if he's selling nuts or bolts or tinsel. You'll hear the rest of the story. Because when somebody asks you, what do you do for a living? I have found there's only two reasons why they're asking. One, they're trying to find a noun. They're trying to find an object of what you do that they can quickly dismiss because they can say to themselves, I don't need you. And then the other guy is simply being polite, doesn't care to listen to a dang word you say, but there's void space, and he's being polite and says, what do you do for a living? With no intention of listening to the answer. You have one opportunity to knock them off center, one. So when you say, what do you do for a living? I have a master's of science in financial services. I always carry my phone on stage with me. And I use this as an example. I'll pull my phone out and say, hey, Siri, how many top of the table MDRT producers are within a 10-mile radius of where I'm standing? And up comes a list. See, if that's what you believe your value add is a title, be proud of the title, please. I'm not saying don't be, but there's a time and a place to bring your accolades into this business, and it's not on your first appointment. I'm a CLU. I'm proud of you. But if, again, hey, Siri, how many CLUs within 3 feet of me?
Right. Well, and it's fun because obviously the formula you've built over your career here, works when you have a guy that can have his very first year in the business as the top of the table producer. I mean, that's a pretty spectacular story. How fun would it have been to start out in the business at the top of the table? Like, wow, I just hit the jackpot, right? So that's a fun way to begin. So let's talk a little bit about how you felt when you first discovered these principles. How, where did this kind of come from? Was it a mentor of yours? It sounded like you had a mentor that sort of set you on the right path as well. But obviously some of this was trial and error and testing, and, tell me a little bit more about what happened for you.
Well, I wish I'd have known this. My dad was in the business. He didn't know this. He didn't teach me this. My son is in the business, and he's core to the table, and he's 38. And I was broke at 38. So I'm thinking, I wish I would have been shared this. I learned a lot of these basic principles from a Circle of Wealth, Don Blanton.
Okay.
My son wants to call our group Infinite Circle of Leapstones, because nothing we talk about is original, nothing. And I always tell people, what we do is not proprietary. How we do it is. How we do what we do is 100% proprietary, because nobody is out there doing business like we are. We don't sell, yet we write about $10 million of premium a year in life insurance. We don't sell. We create environments conducive for people to buy. So when I look at in my career of those people that have had a big impact, Don has had a huge impact. Simon Sinek has had a huge impact. My personal business coach here in Nashville has had a huge impact. He wrote a book called Person of Interest, How to Become a Person of Interest and Stop retracting or reflecting, but getting business where you become an attraction. So a couple of things, and again, Simon Sinek's 18-minute video is just, and I watch it about every month because I always pick up something. And one of the most profound statements he makes, and I'm going to share this to everybody on the call. As a salesperson, quote unquote, salesperson, your job isn't to go out and find people who need to buy the stuff you're trying to sell. As a salesperson, your job should be to go out and find people who believe what you believe. And that's the problem in our industry. Very few people have a belief of anything. They believe every product is good and that every product can fit a need. So I'm going to find out what your needs are. I'll go to those same people after you leave, and I'll sell 5 times as much because I help them understand what they want, not what they need.
Yeah, which is a lot more powerful. And that's an important distinction that I think is sometimes lost on many, people in the industry. They just aren't. It's maybe seems like such a small thing, but it really isn't.
In my group, I do this a lot. The difference between where most people are and where I want you to go is not a huge change. It's words, and words matter. And the right words attract, the wrong words repel. And we have spent years developing the words that attract, so that when we talk about how stuff works, we don't talk about the product, we talk about the problems that are associated. Here's where you are, here's what's going to happen. I'll bet you didn't know that's what's going to happen. Here's an alternative, and here's what's going to happen. Nothing. No tax returns. Which one do you want? And I could care less which one you take. I've got to go find people who believe as I do. And if you need to think about paying taxes or not, I don't want you as a client anyway. If you have to spend more than 1/8 of a millisecond asking, should I pay taxes or not? And you have to think about that, you're not a good fit for me.
Right. If you love paying taxes, have at it. But
I'm not your guy.
yeah, I'm not the guy for you.
Right.
Well, I mean, the cool thing about a lot of what you're coaching is really it's a bunch of leveraged, subtle changes in how you say things, how you approach things, and how you present your own core value, so that it leads to this exponential explosion, because all these little things kind of come together synergistically to really create this explosion of business for them. It's sort of like unlocking the secrets to being successful in the industry, really, just by having all these alignments kind of connect.
Well, I believe the success, not only in the breakaway league, but the success in the business period, is to create environments conducive for people to want to buy, rather
Mhm.
than create sales gimmicks or sales language so that you can force someone to need to buy. And there's wants and needs. And I have made a career out of making this a want, not a need.
Mhm.
There's a
And
huge
that's
difference.
huge difference and very powerful for sure. So we have a few more minutes on our show today, and I know you're going to be doing a presentation on the Cracking the Prospecting Code Summit. Did you want to give listeners maybe a little sneak preview of what you're going to be talking about there?
It's going to be about the explanation of services, something that I
Okay.
am very passionate about. And again, because I believe most people fail because they don't prospect well enough. I would argue people fail because they don't have enough good conversations to have with the people they do finally see. So this is all about how to engage in conversation, how to start a conversation where one did not exist, where you can become the person of interest, and you can have the conversation then on you, whether you want to even pursue it or not. I've turned away a lot of business because I don't like the way they talk. I don't like the conversation they had with their wife. I don't like the way they treated their child. I get to be the buyer here in this relationship. I no longer am selling. I know I hold the keys to every single person's financial future. I can get you out of jail, if you will. My job, though, is to find people who are serious about wanting to learn what I know. And advice is given in only one of two circumstances: when I ask for it or when it's life-threatening. So if I can create an environment conducive where you're asking me my knowledge, I'll be glad to share that with you. If I start the conversation with how brilliant I am, I've shut you off, you've turned me off, and you're wanting me to get away from you as soon as possible. Yet if I can tease you with facts that I know that are going to create a problem for you, you'll look at me and go, can you fix that? Yes, I can. Do you want it fixed? And that's where the sale is made. It's in the conversation. It's not in the product. The product is irrelevant.
Well, and I think this kind of circles back to even the premise of our summit that's coming up, which is all about prospecting. And I think there are people in the business that think you can go out and buy a lead and hopefully sell that lead. And a lot of folks struggle with that kind of approach with purchase leads. And I think this kind of circles back to what you started the conversation off with here today, which is, if you don't know what to say, it doesn't matter how you've generated that lead or where they've come from, you're going to struggle to sell that person anything because you're not approaching it right. Whether you buy the most expensive pre-qualified leads out there or not, it doesn't really matter. You can probably, walk through the local grocery store and have more success by using the right words that you teach than buying a lead of somebody that's looked up annuities online or life insurance.
Yeah, I'm trying to buy a list of rich, stupid people all my life, and there's no such thing.
No such thing.
When I meet with someone for the first time, my goal, and I'll ask them, how much do you spend for lead generation? They give me a number. I said, my goal over the next 4 months is for you to spend that much on a lead, because this is a waste. By the way, that list has been sold 9 times. So you're the 9th caller. But if I could show you how to have a conversation with anyone you choose to have a conversation with, so you can become the buyer to see if you want to continue to work, how much would that be worth to you rather than buying a list of Rich Stupid People. The guy that has the record for selling or for buying the biggest life insurance policy at $1,200,000 a month responded to a mailer.
Hmm.
He responded to a direct mail piece. And I know that's going to get a lot of your viewers, oh my gosh, I'm going to go out and buy a list of Rich Stupid People. They don't exist. I mean, if you look at that one case versus how many that have failed, I'm convinced that the young man that bought that has no idea what he did buy, because he bought some of the best in the industry and what it can do for him. I don't know if his agent, going back to your point, I don't know if his agent knows how powerful this product actually is and why he bought it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
It was kind of just got lucky on that one.
Yeah.
But that's pretty rare, because really what the goal is to have a process, a method that it's duplicatable, that it's never an accident. And that's what gets you from, beginner in the industry to top of the table in their first year in the business, right? It's taking that system of proven words and process and getting out in front of people and having that impact. So since we're getting close to the end here, is there anything else you would want to let our listeners know about your program, or maybe tell us a little bit about where they can get involved if they want to check you out before they even, see your presentation on the upcoming summit?
During the summit, I'm going to give you two examples of an explanation of services, two diametrically opposed results, yet I consider both to be a success. There's two places you can go to, www.thebreakawayleague.com and then www.theexplanationofservices.com. The explanation of services is the actual course. There's a fee for that. I would recommend you wait until you hear the presentation. If the presentation teases you to where you want to learn more, then by all means, jump on that. But the Breakaway League is more about the website of the group that we have formed around the country.
Okay, great. And then I guess bottom line here, on our summit, the audience is going to be probably somewhere around 1,000 agents from around the country, probably at various stages in their career. I'm sure at various levels of success, everywhere from probably struggling to, doing okay, to maybe some people that are doing really well and just looking to find a way to improve. And I loved that you mentioned earlier that you have coaches still, even to this day. And I think that's a great approach to business, especially this business, is that everyone needs a coach to get them to the next level. And it's great that, there are people that are willing to do that work, because it isn't necessarily easy, but I'm sure it's very satisfying when you know that you've helped somebody, unlock their potential in this business and really get out there and help the consumer as well, because what we do is, magic for the financial lives of the people that you can touch.
True.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. We're right at about 40 minutes today, so I really appreciate you for taking the time to do this podcast and let everybody get a chance to know you and learn a little bit about your philosophy of prospecting and how that all kind of comes into play. And I hope everybody's excited to see the full presentation on the summit. So you want to make sure you show up and hear Tom speak. It's going to be a really powerful presentation, and I think it could be certainly career changing for you. So thank you, Tom, for being on the podcast, and look forward to seeing you soon on our summit coming up at the end of October.
Would it be possible to give a phone number?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. This is our toll-free number. It's 1-800-200-LOVE, 1-800-200-5683. You will not reach me, but you'll reach our staff. If you have any questions or wish additional information, feel free to reach out. I look forward to the end of October. I look forward to making an impact on your listeners' lives. That is my mojo today. My job is to educate as many people as I can and make their lives easier. Not only the agent, but their clients' lives easier.
Well, great. We're very much looking forward to it. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to Quantum Marketing Radio, and we will see you next episode. Thanks, Tom.
You bet. Thank you.